This is only a small drop in the ocean of what must be going on. But it's terrifying to find that after this length of time, still very, very little has been done. We've still got the problem.
Material was disappearing down the drains, it was disappearing at night. They'd been given the tag Oops Waste Management and Abracadabra Waste Management. You were just told to do it and that was it. And you basically just lived under the fear of losing your job. It seems very strange that people here are charged with administering the public purse, really, as far as the environment is concerned. Don't want to know anything about it.
Each year Northern Ireland produces 1 million tonnes of waste. Some of the materials are so deadly they require special handling. They include toxic chemicals like cyanides and acids. The waste business makes millions of pounds for its owners, but not everyone is prepared to pay to have the job done properly.
This is a story of greed and deceit, of courageous whistleblowers and the ineffective government regulators who let them down.
Silverwood Galvanisers produces a toxic waste containing sodium dichromate. For 3 years there was no record of where this waste had gone. Locals claim the workers were paid to pour some of it down the drain.
What we'd come across was that some of sodium dichromate was being poured into a small river beside a factory in Lough Neagh, and we were worried that that would run down through and into the Lough Neagh. It's a carcinogen and it has long-term effect on the chest, breathing and various other illnesses. The local factory that's supposed to send this waste off with special waste, people were just using workers to pour it in to save the money.
There was initially a bit of an uproar on the factory floor about what we were using, and some of the men put it to the management and they came back and said it wasn't harmful.
These men were amongst a number of employees told to empty a large tank of water polluted with sodium dichromate. One of them spoke to Spotlight.
I actually seen the sludge been taken out of the tank with a slurry tanker, and the slurry tanker was then piped into a drain in the factory and was dispensed down the drain.
It was only by chance that the employees discovered how toxic the chemical was.
There was a consignment of it brought into the factory, and the specification sheet was still in the bags. It gave a bit of a breakdown on it, said that it caused respiratory problems, could cause cancer, bone problems. It said that you could pass some of these things on to your children.
Alarmed by what they discovered, the workers went to their local Friends of the Earth group. When they learnt what the men had found, they investigated the claims.
I went to the Environment and Heritage Services in the beginning, and basically they said that they had done tests at Silverwood and that all the readings were fine. Oh, I wasn't able to believe at first what I was looking at, but even more unbelievable was that there was no reaction. Nobody cared, and they were quite happy to continue with those conditions.
Did they come and meet with you? And
No, never.
They never met with you?
No.
Did they ever speak to you to get further evidence?
No.
It was flowing into Lough Neagh to the water that we drink, and yet the DOE was doing nothing, disbelieving us. I couldn't take it in. And I think a lot of other people that I spoke to were of the same mind, that this couldn't be happening, it's not true, you know, maybe your facts are wrong or incorrect, but they weren't, they were correct.
By the time the liquid reached the stream, it was very dilute, and when the DOE tested the water, no traces of dichromate were found.
I don't really see how you can misunderstand putting a chemical like sodium bichromate into a storm drain and coming out into a river where kids can play, and this river actually runs into Lough Neagh. So anybody would really understand that you don't do it.
Even small quantities of these chemicals are particularly dangerous. The accumulation of these kind of chemicals in the environment is one of the things we have to worry about most. They don't just go away, they're always there.
Silverwood Galvanisers refused an interview, but told us in a letter that they've always disposed of their waste chemicals according to the regulations. We also asked to speak to the DOE to find out why there's no evidence showing where the Silverwood waste has gone for the past 3 years, as records are legally required. They too refused. But they have reassured the residents that a Northern Ireland waste management company, Irish Waste, is now dealing with the sodium dichromate.
Well, the last thing we heard from the DOE was that Irish Waste were going to collect this toxic waste and take it away for treatment and to see to it properly.
At long last, this is terrific. Somebody has listened to us and they're acting on it.
Irish Waste is a Belfast-based company and makes its money from protecting the environment. It has a turnover of millions of pounds a year with multinational companies and government agencies as customers.
It appeared a very professional company. It seemed a company that I could have had a future with, which was what I was looking for. And they seemed to go about things in a very proper and matter-of-fact way. But there were little bits and pieces as we went along where drivers, particularly the guys who were operating equipment, would say, this was done slightly wrong, or you don't want to know about this or don't want to know about that. Some of the other people who operated the treatment plant said to me, they called the company Oops Waste Management or Abracadabra Waste Management, and that sort of concerned me because they were sort of saying to me that at times stuff was disappearing off the site, sort of obviously maybe not down the proper channels.
Des Fulham joined the company as sales executive. At the time, it was handling more than 3/4 of all the liquid waste in Northern Ireland, and it was his first contact with the industry. Careful and legal disposal of waste is their business. Much of the waste is dangerous to humans and the environment. Some of it is deadly. Last year, Irish Waste was awarded the highest environmental standard, ISO 14001. But Spotlight has been investigating some of the company's own standards.
Why are you filming me now if you're filming an industrial area?
Irish Waste is Jason McPolin.
If you don't want to stand and talk to us and go off, we won't film.
If you're doing an industrial area, why you not want to film a person?
Because you come over to talk to us. You come over to find out what we're doing.
That's okay. Well, I know anyway. Thank you very much.
All right. You're welcome.
His father, Jerry McPolin, started the company 30 years ago. He's now retired.
The company seemed to have a good relationship with its customers. They provided a good service, they had good vehicles, they had good staff, all of whom were very conscientious. But there were queries from customers, and people were saying, the weight that you've charged me for and this particular load or that particular load, it seems excessive, and I didn't really think a lot about it, because not having had a lot of experience in that business, I didn't know what a lorry exactly would weigh and that sort of thing, but there was a time then, there came a time when I felt that I needed to know more about it for the customers, and I asked for the weights of the vehicles, and I got a sheet with the weights of the vehicles on it. There were then some more queries, and I phoned the chap who operated the weighbridge, and he said to me that I had a sheet of vehicle weights. I said, "Oh yes, I have one." He said, "Well, sure, I'll fax it up to you anyway and make sure everything's okay." And I said, "Well, do that." So he faxed it up to me, but it was different to the one that I had, and that really worried me, because there were differences of 2, 3, 4 tons in some of the vehicle weights, and that was quite substantial. At maybe upwards of 50, 60, 70 pounds a ton for disposal. A heck of a difference to people's bills.
We had taken this allegation very seriously. When it was brought to our attention, it was brought to our attention by surprise. We then contacted our legal people, and we set about carrying out an independent audit of the system. And the independent audit was carried out by independent chartered accountants. They've evaluated the situation and are currently drawing up a report on the situation.
So some of the invoices that went out to customers would be inaccurate because they would show the wrong weights?
It can be inaccurate from two senses. The invoices could be either incorrect in favour of the customer or incorrect in favour of the company. I'm not aware, Mike, of any customers that have been overcharged or overbilled. Had that have been the case, we would have looked at every individual situation and assessed if that had been a problem.
But Spotlight has seen the conclusions of the report from the independent firm of accountants. It showed that by using the disputed sheet of weights to write invoices, the example they investigated, Seagate Technologies, was overcharged by £9,420 over a 12-month period. However, the report claims they may have been overcharged by mistake. At the very least, it appears an unusually confusing system.
When did this first come to your attention, the fact that there was a question over the real weights of the lorry?
Whenever we were investigated by the police,
Which was June, July?
early June this year, yeah.
Des Fulham told Spotlight that he'd taken his concerns about the lorry weights to the company in April. Other employees were also becoming suspicious at what was going on.
My job was to facilitate the amount of loads coming in and make sure that the tanks didn't overflow, and I did that.
William McCart worked in Irish Waste on Crew Street Depot. He undertook special training to deal with hazardous waste, but after a while he began to notice waste being mishandled, especially when lorries, known as vacuum tankers, were being washed out.
Basically, they were brought into the yard, and then the vehicle, the back door would have been opened, it would have been washed in the yard. Now, as I say, it wasn't washed all the time in the yard, but on the occasions it would have been washed in the yard, and the stuff would have just went straight down the drain. The drain itself actually runs off a sort of catchment area. I learned sometime later that catchment pit actually goes straight into the drain, because what happened one day that the catchment pit was actually overflowing with a substance that we couldn't deal with, and that's when I discovered that it was actually straight into the drain. There was one day that there was a load brought in, and they had an accident, and there was actually some was actually spilt on the yard, and Jerry asked Peter, another employee, to wash that down with a hose quickly, and Peter's exact words were, "Fuck me, you couldn't wash that down the drain." So he said, "Just fucking do it." So Peter proceeded to wash the substance and water as much as he could, and at the latter end Peter just had he had enough, and Peter just walked away from it, as did myself. The substance in question, how do you say, if it gets on your skin, it can seep in through your skin into your blood system, and cause you heart failure, for one. It can cause damage to your liver, to your kidneys. So, you know, it's not your sort of light chemical. It is quite a hazardous substance, you know.
We've spoken to a former yardman here, I'm sure the name will be familiar with it, William McCart. He says that when he was working in the yard, he saw liquid going down a drain in the yard.
That's incorrect, Mike.
Is there a drain in the yard that can drain out?
No, there's not.
He said that he was asked once or twice to wash liquid into an interceptor tank, which when he went to see where it had gone, he claimed he saw it flowing down the drain, his words.
That's incorrect, Mike.
Has any liquid in the yard ever been washed down the drain?
Not to my knowledge.
Can you be categorical that nothing could go down the drain here?
Yes.
Is there a drain connected in any way to the yard or to the interceptor pit?
No.
There's no connection at all?
No, there is a connection. The connections were sealed off.
Can I ask when it was sealed off?
They were sealed off a good time ago, and they were resealed again at the commissioning of our new plant.
You say they were sealed off a good time ago. Belfast City Council told us in a letter that they've directed that a seal be put on a drain because of the potential hazard. This was just a few weeks ago.
That's right.
So there was a drain to the yard.
But waste wasn't just being washed down the drain. The company has a number of large storage tanks holding many tons of liquid waste. It's alleged that the contents of some of these tanks were deliberately emptied into the drain during the night.
On a number of occasions, I've seen, looked to me like water and oil, you know, sort of substance running out of it, and it was just going straight in to the catchment pit, which eventually would lead to straight into the drain pipe. to be honest, and at first it didn't sort of bother me, you know. I said, well, it must be, you know. And then whenever it was asked, or whenever I asked the question, you know, what is, you know, why is this happening? I was told by Jerry McPoland, who's Jason's father, who originally owned the company, or who originally created the company, that, you know, that was a normal activity. And for the amount of tonnage that came in and the amount of tonnage that the water treatment plant, in my knowledge, can actually, how do you say, handle or facilitate, you know, there wasn't, how do you say, the tanks were empty the next morning whenever I actually came into work. You know?
I've seen hard copies of evidence where some of the chemicals were being disposed of, and once I had seen this, I was basically completely demotivated.
John Byrne was employed by Irish Waste to oversee health and safety and help the company obtain the internationally recognised ISO 14001 Environmental Management Award. But when he came across computer records showing how some of the waste was being disposed of, he realised not all the procedures were being followed.
I knew what the various components or the characteristics on the graphs meant. It showed on them that the various temperature, the quantity that was in there, particularly the quantity is a specific one, and that showed how much was taken in. So there was an increase on a graph or a characteristic on a graph plot chart, and then it showed a decrease in it. Now, the decrease in the quantity coming from the tanks and the waste and the chemical treatment plant was there was no record of that being released anywhere. So that's actually, it had to go somewhere. We don't have any record of it going to either the sewage treatment works, or we don't have any record of the solids being delivered to a landfill site.
So the assumption is what?
Well, it had to go down a drain.
I have actually a computer printout that shows a tank emptied right throughout the night. Have you seen this document?
I haven't seen, no, sorry mate.
When you had a recent visitation with Belfast City Council to discuss the matter, did they show you this document?
No, I've never seen this document.
They didn't raise this as a point with you when you met with them?
No.
Do you know where the document came from?
That's a document demonstrating, which we have in place in the plant, which monitors minute by minute tank levels in the facility.
This one on that particular night shows throughout the night, right across midnight and beyond, liquid leaving the tank. Would you agree that that's what it shows?
That's what it shows, yes.
Where did that liquid go?
That liquid most likely might go into another tank, which is not on the monitoring system.
But the chemical engineer who had the monitoring system installed claims that all tanks that could properly and safely take the waste were connected to the monitoring system. And an independent waste consultant commissioned by Spotlight says he cannot think of any bona fide reason for Irish Waste's explanation. The company's practices led John Byrne to question his own role with the firm.
I was brought in there for a reason, and that reason was to install an environmental management system for the company. In my opinion, in hindsight, the company had no intention whatsoever of abiding by any of the processes or the policies that were put into place. Seeing it as, why were they doing this? Basically, I failed to see the reason why they were doing it when they were in such a strong market position to be able to do things right. They chose to go another route, which I failed to see the reason why.
I can only assume that it's greed really, that it's money related, and there doesn't seem to be any other reason to do it, because I mean they were getting paid for the waste that they were taking in. They were getting good rates for it, so they were providing a good service for those good rates. But then at the end of that, if they could dispose of the end product without paying landfill taxes or without any further disposal costs, it obviously added to the profit considerably. It was quite an oppressive atmosphere, but everybody needed their job and needed the money, and people just sometimes kept their head down.
Jason McPone himself is a very intimidating man. ruthless in his actions. For instance, the way he speaks to people, his language wouldn't be desired, like that, you know. And I had a mortgage, a girlfriend, you know, a couple of kids, so I mean, it was imperative to me to have a job.
Why did employees tell us things like, and I quote, Jason McPoland is a very intimidating man, ruthless. It's quite an oppressive atmosphere, referring to the company, and say that the managers, and I quote, could be at times quite abrasive and arrogant.
That's contrary to the attitude of the company, Mike.
Is it possible that's what came across to them in the way they were treated?
Definitely not. Definitely not. I think if you ask the current employees who work in the company at the minute, what their opinion is of the management and myself, I would like to think that they found I was a down-to-earth guy.
In one instance, I overheard Jason saying to another employee, I pay the money. If you don't do what I say, well, then you won't be here. If you didn't carry out your chores that you were not asked to do, but ordered to do, well, then therefore you basically would have got the sack.
I have children, and I felt that what they were doing, from what I could see from my little knowledge of chemistry and whatever, they were putting raw waste of some sort down the drain, from what I could understand. And I felt, well, if that's going into the sea or into the environment, I don't want my kids destroyed by that. And I mean, that has happened obviously in the past and has caused major problems. And I just felt a need to inform someone about that, and I spoke to John and Dominic, and our thoughts were to go and speak to the relevant agencies, the Water Service and the City Council who licensed the site.
If everyone was to take a common stance against such issues like that, then there would be, you know, a common action that would need to be taken.
It was like a step too far. You know, he had stepped on me enough without going anymore, and I feel obligated to other people, maybe not in the country, but to society, that things like this shouldn't happen.
After the men left the company, they made statements to a solicitor setting out the allegations. These were sent to Belfast City Council, the Department of the Environment and the police back in May. But 5 months later, no one has been charged with any offence, and the DOE still have not spoken to a single witness. Yet they refused an interview, telling us they are investigating Irish waste. The council also refused an interview, saying that they too are investigating the company. So we confronted the Environment Minister, Sam Foster.
It's being investigated, and the department is helping out in that particular investigation, so there's no problem there whatsoever.
But one of the investigations, 5 months after it started, none of the eyewitnesses have ever been contacted by the department.
Well, I wouldn't like to make any further comment on that, because, as I just said, it's being investigated. It's not been let go, as it were. It's been sought out, and in fact, we have to wait to see what the investigations bring forth.
It's frightening, so it is, really, to think that the authorities have just sort of washed their hands of it, you know. There seems to be quite compelling evidence, as far as I can see, to at least research the thing and do something about it, but there doesn't seem to be any particular will to do that. And, you know, I've asked environmental people, and I've told them all this, and they seem to have done just nothing about it. And it seems very strange that people who are charged with administering the public purse, really, as far as the environment is concerned, don't want to know anything about it.
There doesn't seem to be the legislation there to really enforce the type of complaint or action that we've decided to take against these actions being taken place.
Compared to the rest of the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland's environmental legislation is, in some cases, up to 25 years out of date. England and Wales have long recognised the value of having an independent protection agency to police the environment, but Northern Ireland shares it rather confusingly amongst a number of government agencies.
Well, I think there's a certain lack of will in the department. I don't really understand
why there's a lack of will. There's plenty of incentive for them to get it right, and there's a grey area here in that there are different authorities responsible for different things. The Belfast City Council have a role, Water Service have a role, and the Environmental Protection Division have a role. But they are a scandalous catalogue of allegations, and we're deeply shocked that a company of that size should behave in that way. And we'll certainly be calling on Belfast City Council and the Department of the Environment to throw the book at them.
Remember that waste in Lurgan? In June, the DOE reassured residents that Irish Waste would look after it, yet the DOE had been alerted to what was going on inside the company a month earlier.
It's absolutely absurd. I mean, we in our work try and uncover these incidents of pollution in order that something's done about it. And we look to government to take a responsible attitude and to make sure that something is done about it. To recommend a company that they already know is dubious in its reputation, worse than that, they've already got evidence against, really is gross incompetence.
Well, it's extremely disappointing with the DOE, that they didn't ensure after all this time and all that had gone on that it was dealt with properly. And basically we have to start again.
I wasn't totally surprised. I mean, it would be a lie to say, oh, I was shocked. But I was angry and annoyed because I did think that we had successfully concluded a campaign and, that we could move on. And in fact, we're still in the same position.
It was very sad when we heard that the project starts all over again because we can't even trust the people that are supposedly handling the waste matter, and it's very disillusioning.
Well, we were told that it would be a dirty job and that we would receive £10 an hour for doing it. So that's the reason why we've done it, was overtime.
At the end of last year, the Assembly voted the Department of Environment extra funds to help fight pollution and enforce the legislation. It seems that it's not just waste that's going down the drain. In Northern Ireland, pollution pays.
Spotlight is back on BBC One next Tuesday at the same time. An update